Hello, I'm Amanda Whewell and welcome to week 4 of Project eARTh Mexican Embroidery Design Project. Last week you transferred your design onto fabric. We're not going to use the fabric until the end of the session today, so if you can just make sure that's somewhere safe out the way until the end of the session. We're going to work on your paper design, so the one that you traced, we're going to work on the actual paper version of it, not the fabric one. And we're going to colour that in using the felt pens and using a pattern that will make it look as if it's been stitched. So there's my sample, and you can see it looks like it's stitched even though it's done with felt pens. It takes a while, maybe a bit of patience, but it's quite a nice thing to do once you get into it. So I'm going to show you how you can do that pattern on your design. And I'll do the demo. Before I start, make sure you fill your evaluation feedback form in before you start the session and at the end. So I'll come back at the end and tell you what to do with your fabric, but for now, put that out the way and we're going to work on your paper design. So this week you're going to colour in your paper design. You need your felt pens, all the different colours. You need your design, the one that you traced on the fabric, but you want the paper copy of it. And you might want your designs from the first few weeks or the first couple of weeks where you drew and tried out the designs. You might want to test the pattern out on those. So I'm going to put those to the side. And I'm going to show you the pattern that we're going to do first of all on this piece of paper. And I've drawn some lines on it because most of the patterns are split into lines. Most of our designs are split into lines. And when you do this pattern, you work from the left hand side towards the right, but you keep coming back a bit. So you work it between two lines. So I'm going to start here and I'm going from the left to the right, diagonally up to the top. When I get to the top, I'm going back a bit and then diagonally again towards the right. Back a bit, diagonally again towards the right. Back a bit, diagonally again. Back, diagonal, back, diagonal, back, diagonal. So I'm working across from left to right, but I keep coming back a little bit there. So I'll do another line here. From here, I go diagonally towards the right, back a bit, diagonally, back a bit, diagonally right, back a bit, diagonally right, back a bit. So keep coming back to the left a bit. So I'm just going to carry on doing that. So you might want to practice on some of your little designs that you did at the beginning. I've just put that pen out the way. You're not going to use your black pen, you're going to use your coloured pens. Let's get that orange one. So I could practice doing that on here. Let's see, now I'm going to turn this around so I'm working the right way. So I could do it on the B. So I'm going to come from the left, diagonally up to the right, back a bit, down, back, up, back. And I'm working quite close together, filling in that stripe of the B with the orange pen, doing this pattern. And this is the same pattern that the stitch takes. Now I could change colour, let's get the purple, do the next stripe in a different colour, starting from the left, working towards the right, but keep going back a bit. And it's the same pattern that I just drew with the big thick black pen on the spare paper. Now I'm still working quite far apart. You could, if you wanted to, let's get the red one, make your lines a bit closer together. When we work the stitches, we're going to go quite close together. So it's exactly the same pattern, but you just don't go quite as far across or quite as far back. Keep stitches very close together, very narrow. Say stitches, I know we're doing it with a pen, but we're sort of replicating the stitches. So I've had a little practice on there. I've gone from quite wide to getting it quite narrow. So now I could move on to my final design and start filling this in with the coloured pens using that pattern. So I could start, I don't know if you can see this properly, start there, just the same pattern, diagonally towards the right and back. So I'm just keep doing it. It takes a long time, but it's actually quite nice once you get used to it. It's quite nice and relaxing, I think. If you get stuck, if you get muddled up, you can just take your pen off, come back and think, right, I need to go back if I've touched a line. Doesn't matter if sometimes it's a bit further apart, sometimes a bit nearer together. We want to make something that's handmade and unique, so don't worry too much about it. So when you get to doing one of these shapes, you might want to turn your design round. It doesn't matter what direction your design's in while you're filling the pattern in, just always do it so it's easiest for you to draw. Now I've missed a little bit at the beginning there, you can just go back, fill it in. If you get really stuck and you really don't like the herringbone pattern, you could try some other patterns. So you could just stitch straight across. Let's keep saying stitch. I know we're using the pens, but we're making a stitch. You could keep going straight across like that. That would be called a satin stitch if we were doing that with stitch. Or you could do what we call hatching, which is the same as that really, but maybe going across at a diagonal. So I'm going to do some diagonal lines across here with the orange pen, doing the diagonal lines. I've done those quite far apart, and then you could cross hatch, so you go back across your diagonal lines. You could use a combination of these. It shows you how to do all of these on your handout, on your PDF. You'll have had it in your kit, or you can download it at eARTh.org. So any of those, but preferably have a go at the herringbone. I'm going back here, I've changed colour, but carry on until you've finished all your shapes on your design, and the whole thing is filled in. And I've got a sample somewhere, if I can find it, where I filled mine in. Here it is. So there we go. I did eventually decide to put another shape there to balance it up, but there's my finished design coloured in using the herringbone pattern. And that's it for the demonstration, so I'll come back on the other screen. See you in a minute. Okay, so when you've finished your design, filling it in with your felt pens, you'll have something like this in your sketchbook. Now keep that safe in your sketchbook, close your sketchbook up, and we're going to use that again for another project, and we'll collect them in hopefully when we can get back together sometime. So you don't need to send that back or anything, just keep it in your sketchbook so it stays nice and flat, and we're going to use those designs for something for the Bureau Cafe in Glossop. What you do need to send back is your evaluation forms, your little feedback forms. So you've got a stamped addressed envelope in your kit, and you should have 4 feedback forms filled in now. If you could put those into the envelope and send them back to High Peak Community Arts. The other thing you've got is your design on fabric. Now, if you want to stitch this yourself, just keep that safe till next week, and next week we're going to do the stitch. So keep it in your sketchbook or somewhere safe, and next week I'll show you the stitching. If you don't want to stitch it yourself and you want someone else to stitch your design, if you can pop that in the envelope with your feedback forms and send it all back to High Peak Community Arts. I think that's all for now, so I hope you've enjoyed those 4 weeks of design. If you're not going to stitch, then I'll see you later on in the year in a different project, and if you are going to stitch, I'll see you next week. So bye for now. See ya.